It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Tuesday? We do, and you do. From the Dixieline Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our special Tuesday podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. We welcome you to our rain-delayed podcast. Just an explanation. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects for 2025, we invite you to think about them. They've got the materials. They can be your consultant and your idea specialist, Dixieline Lumber. I will say apologies. We have been off for a week for a wide variety of reasons, but things just kind of stacked up as we went through this past week. We had technical issues. We had the fires in and around us in Rancho Bernardo. Then I had to pack to escape my house. The fires are on the brink of my neighborhood again. I could not revisit what was 2007 when my whole neighborhood burned to the ground. Then I had to have a medical procedure with a snap of the fingers. And then as I was going through that, we lost power. Power in Rancho Bernardo, power in Poway. So we didn't have the facilities to execute what we wanted to do. And then to top it off, while I was recovering, John Riley got ill. Now, he called it blue flu. I know for a fact, because it was on social media. If it's on social media, it has to be true. John Riley was sitting back, feet up on the table, smoking cigars with his dog, drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon, and he got sick. So anyhow, John's healthy. I'm back. Power is on. We had 1.8 inches of rain, which suppressed the fire issue. So we're back running. So our apologies for people that emailed us, missed us, wondered where the hell we went. There were just a lot of things that were happening in about a 5-day event on our calendar. We're back, got a lot to talk about. I'd ask you how you're doing, but you look better than I feel, so we're off and running.
We're off and running, and man, you get old, it gets tougher when you deal with this stuff.
Hey, just a couple of business notes. If you like sports, I invite you to check my website. I write on it every day, leehacksawhamilton.com. Regardless of what you follow, you want to know about the NFL coaching changes and all the interviews, you want to know about the last-minute free agent signings in baseball, the controversy in the NBA, the blockbuster trades in hockey, what's happened at the Australian Open, on the PGA Golf Tour, the start of the auto racing season. I write about it every day. It's very easy to access whatever you want to read about. It's on my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. Second item, I know you're on social media. Hell, everybody was talking about Pabst Blue Ribbon and bad cigars on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just go at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. We want you to share. Tell everybody what we do. Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. Today's a special show. Tell them what we do. And we want you to subscribe. When you subscribe, you get on the YouTube email list because we always put things up on the YouTube channel during the course of the week now that we are back in business. So we're going lots of directions. Thanks for bearing with us. It was a rugged, badass 4 or 5 days, but I'm back. He's healthy, and we're ready to go. And we invite you to join us because when we're done, John, we're starting with Fans Forum.
Fans, you came loaded and ready to go, man. You've had all this pent-up sports content.
Meds.
There you go. So if you have a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, just drop your take in the live chat on X, Facebook, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
Before we hit the button and cover topics on the table, was it the Pabst Blue Ribbon or a bad cigar?
The Bears.
Okay, we got a lot of topics to talk about, go in a lot of different directions. Bear with us because we're going to try to roll through a lot of information and a lot of data. Topic 1, John.
Topic 1, let's talk about the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, let's talk about the matchups, what happened over the weekend. I projected Kansas City was going to beat Buffalo just because of the brilliance of Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. And that was a back-and-forth seesaw game. At the end of the day, what Andy Reid did formation-wise in the second half of that game shocked Buffalo. And now the Bills players admitted They saw formations they had never seen on any video, and that's why they could not defend Kansas City the last couple of possessions. Mahomes lined up in an old T formation. Think about that. Both his running backs, the top tier running backs, and his fullback in a T. Then they lined up in a pistol with Travis Kelce as part of the pistol. And Buffalo could not make plays on either of them. And they had design runs after the weird formations, with Mahomes actually running the football on a design run. Mahomes ran for 5 first downs in that football game because of the unique formations that Andy Reid devised. And then they add into that, they came out at the start of the game and never threw to Travis Kelce. He had 1 target in the first half, and what they did was they threw to Hollywood Brown, and then they threw to the other tight end, and then they threw to Juju Schuster-Smith, and then they sprayed the ball to their running backs. And then right at the end, they went to a backup fullback who caught maybe the most critical pass of the game that sealed the deal. So Andy Reid's brilliance on offense with formations just stun-gunned Buffalo's defense. And then Steve Spagnuolo just committed the house to disrupt the rhythm and flow of Josh Allen. And at the end of the day, Allen did make plays. There's no doubt about that. He made some passes down the field, but the pressure on him was just unbelievable. And I think we saw the difference in the Kansas City roster, where everybody they called on in pass patterns caught passes. And in the Buffalo group, hardly any of those guys made any consistent receptions to bail Josh Allen out. There were drop passes. There were guys slipping on the field. There were guys trying to run to get open. And Josh Allen was running for his life in the whole time. Steve Spagnuolo's blitz package, what he showed at the line of scrimmage versus what he delivered, was just a massive difference in the course of the game. So Kansas City is going back. I'm sorry, I don't buy any of the BS about the refs are biased towards the Chiefs. At the end of the day, Mahomes makes things happen because he is so athletic and so gifted, and Kansas City's receivers find ways to get open. So therefore, you're going to have all types of pass interference penalties, defensive holds, etc. Kansas City's just got more guys who can contribute with a mad scientist head coach. Buffalo's got the stud quarterback, but I just don't know if Buffalo is a complete football team. That's my perception what happened in the AFC Championship game. Put that Pabst Blue Ribbon down and give me your opinion.
What the hell is up with this 4th down, going for the QB sneak? Josh Allen got over the line and he gets screwed on the spot. And at the same time, why does the NFL use this archaic system of measuring, first, 10 yards for a first down? We have sports that have electronic, shots on the edges of goals, on strike zones. And you got these old guys with chains and sticks trying to figure this out.
I concur with you. And I think we're going to get to this off season, and the competition committee is going to make some more changes. There's talk about, do we put a chip in the football? So if the chip edge of the football is over the yard marker, it's a first down. When you can't see it, when there's a mass of bodies there, or even like goal line plays, things of that nature, quarterback sneaks. So yeah, there's some technology there that they may. How the hell could you tell? You're sitting there with a Pabst Blue Ribbon in your hand. You're looking at your TV screen and said, that's a first down. Hell, they got the cameras on it and they couldn't see it.
No, but the guys are blocked. The referees are on the other sideline. They can't see it all. So, they should even put microchips inside the shoes of the receivers and then have an electronic line that we don't see on the out of bounds. So when they get to 2 feet in, we can be sure about it.
You guys with technology in your background, holy cow. But Kansas City's going where Kansas City belongs. We'll say this. I know there's a lot of barking. Oh, no. Again, the Chiefs? Understand this. Since 1967, I think there have been only 4 teams that have won back-to-back Super Bowls. Green Bay, Dallas, Denver, Pittsburgh, New England. That's 5.
And the 49ers.
49ers, okay. So, since 1967, that was a few third downs ago. Kansas City is now going where nobody's ever gone, try to win their 3rd in a row. So let's appreciate the history. Because, John, rosters are never the same. Teams are never the same on a year-by-year basis. The significance of injuries, age, free agency, guys coming, guys going, guys not working out, draft picks bombing. To be able to do this 3 years in a row to get the championship game, that's staggering. Now, on the other perspective, Buffalo, Yeah, my heart kind of sags. They feel really bad. And I'm not just talking because it's crappy winter and snow and blizzards in Buffalo. The Bills under Jim Kelly and Marv Levy went to 4 straight Super Bowls and didn't win. The Bills under that great quarterback, Josh Allen, have now faced Kansas City 4 straight years in the playoffs and have lost each of those games. And the weird part of that equation is Josh Allen is 4-1 in the regular season against Mahomes, but he's 0-4 in the postseason. So Buffalo, unfortunately, is 0-4 with Josh Allen, like they were 0-4 with Jim Kelly, and your heart sags there.
Andy Reid plays chess, man.
Yeah.
Sean McDermott's doing checkers. I mean, Andy Reid's probably playing that regular season game, thinking he's setting him up for a playoff matchup.
Bingo.
No doubt. And I'll tell you this: when I was younger, I used to always get really angry. How come the Yankees always win? How come it's this team or that team? Of course,
greatness of the organization and the people.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm beginning to sort of tip a hat, even if it's one of my rival teams. If they put together a period of excellence, you've got to recognize it.
I like Corona beer. Next time I'm coming, do not serve Pabst Blue Ribbon, please. Okay, we go from that one. Next game.
Okay, Eagles-Commanders. This kind of turned into a rout.
This was kind of a surprise, though, out of the gate. When Washington went 18 plays to start the game and ate up almost 10 minutes on the clock, I said, wow, nobody has done that to Philadelphia all year. Because they had to settle for a field goal because the Eagles manned up and kept them out of the end zone. And as the game flipped on the very next possession, Superman showed up. Saquon Barkley, 60-yard touchdown run, first offensive play of the game. Think about that. Washington ran 18 snaps. Saquon had 1, and the Eagles had the lead. Washington hung in there. They scared them. Washington threw the ball a lot of different places, spread it around. Jaden Daniels did not make a lot of mistakes. Everybody else on the team did. But at the end of the day, I just thought too much mean green defense, too much Superman Saquon Barkley, too many turnovers. You can't fumble it and lose it 3 times and throw a pick. Too many sacks. And Washington took 4 really critical major temper tantrum penalties along the way, including a really brutal face mask and some other junk that Marshawn Lattimore got himself involved in. End of the day, Philadelphia piled it up, 55 points in the win over Washington. Washington hung in there till the fourth quarter, then the thing just got away from them. Eagles are tough. Eagles are mean green. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl next week, but Philadelphia is the real deal, and you got to line up and play a different kind of game to hang in there with them because they're the ones that are dictating tempo and toughness along the way. What'd you think of the Eagle game?
Yeah, I mean, it was a beatdown once you kind of got a little deeper into the game. But, emotionally, I was with Jaden Daniels, and every once in a while, the Commanders would start catching up, and then something would go wrong. They'd break down, or Saquon Barkley would bust another one, and the next thing you know, it's a 3-score game again. So, tip of the hat to Jaden Daniels. That guy's a talent. Dan Quinn got a great future. So moving on to the next round.
And no Havana cigars when I come back in here. We're not smoking.
You just won't let up, man.
We're not smoking stogies either. Okay, so that's the sum total. You want to comment on the Chiefs, what they've accomplished, the disappointment in Buffalo, who the Eagles have become, what Washington almost was. Fans Forum chat box is open right now. Pile in because we're looking to get your contribution. Since you've had a week off to store all this information and opinion, I guess we're going to have to tolerate what you're going to deliver. Fans Forum chat box is open. One other NFL note. Go ahead.
So you got report cards to give out, I see.
Yeah. All but one coaching job now filled in the NFL. I'm going to give out report card grades for these guys. I'm going to give the Bears a letter grade of A by getting Ben Johnson from Detroit. This guy is brilliant. This guy took, in essence, a street free agent quarterback in Jared Goff, who had not accomplished a lot in LA, and converted him into a 4,000-yard passing quarterback every season, topped off by the career year that he had this year when Detroit almost got the chance to be a Super Bowl team before injuries wrecked them. I think this is a really good hire. And by the way, he's looking across the border from Chicago because he's going to raid Dan Campbell's staff for a couple more people. I'll give the Bears a letter grade of A. Raider Nation Revival. By the way, that's the topic of my One Man's Opinion column on my website today. You should check it out. I watched that press conference yesterday with Pete Carroll and John Spytek, the new general manager. Man, it was kind of equal parts tent revival speech, equal parts party. It was kind of cool. I think Pete Carroll, right guy, right time, right place, right situation. He brings energy. He and that new general manager will now have 10 draft picks and $107 million in cap space. They're going to find a quarterback. They definitely have access to a really good offensive tackle. They probably will get access to a decent running back. I think they fixed this thing a lot quicker than anybody realizes. Mark Davis, just sit in the corner and shut up. This was a real great hire, obviously directed by Tom Brady. So the Raiders get themselves a head coach who was a winner and a general manager that's now helped build a couple teams, draft and develop, because he was responsible for a lot of the stuff in Tampa Bay. Letter grade A to the Raiders. Jacksonville. This sounds strange for all the chaos with the general manager getting fired after the first round of interviews and then them circling back and hiring Liam Cohen of Tampa Bay, who is their juiced-up offensive coordinator. He walks into a really good situation. He's got to fix Trevor Lawrence, who's been battered. He's got 2 running backs. He's got a host of wide receivers. I think Jacksonville is going to be a real bounce-back franchise next year. And their defense was ravaged by injuries. They're going to get all the injured guys back. I'll guarantee you they won't be giving up 390 yards per game next season. And he links with Baker Mayfield. So what he did at Baker Mayfield, he'll carry over and give it to Trevor Lawrence. I think Jacksonville gets an A. I'm going to give New England's hiring of Mike Vrabel a B. This is a culture hire more than it is anything else. The roster is really deficient of talent outside of Drake May. But if you get Vrabel-type players, they will play his type of football, which is rock'em, sock'em, old school, in your face, knock you down. That's what the Tennessee Titans were under the 4 years of pretty successful football with Vrabel. I'm going to give them a letter grade of B. Bob Kraft's better be ready to spend some money, though, because they need offensive line help. They need skill position help there. New York Jets. I went back and forth on this, but the fact that Aaron Glenn is a proven commodity, a real smart defensive coordinator type guy who gets elevated, he's going to hire good offensive people. It looks as if they're going to keep Aaron Rodgers for at least one more year. But make no mistake about this. This is going to be Aaron Glenn's team. It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers' team. I'm going on vacation type stuff. So I think that's a decent hire. They inherit a pretty good defense, and Aaron Glenn's going to throw that ignition switch to get that defense going. I'm giving the Jets a B. Dallas. This is a weird hire. The press conference, and I watched a piece of it. Just strange. The press conference was not so much about Brian Schottenheimer. The press conference was about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones always had something to say. Brian Schottenheimer hardly spoke at all. Now, in defense of Marty Schottenheimer's kid, he's been an assistant coach for a decade plus, 12 years, I think, overall. He's been a play caller. He was in Seattle with Pete Carroll, and they were successful. So he knows X's and O's, and he's going to get all these injured guys back from defense. And hopefully the battered offensive line will all be healthy. And you got Dak Prescott. And at the end of the year, they think they found themselves a running back. And of course, they still have CD Lamb. So maybe this spin turnaround is going to be quicker than anybody thinks. But it's not getting great reviews in Dallas. It's not getting great reviews around the NFL because Jerry Jones just spent the whole day talking about Jerry Jones, not about Brian Schottenheimer. I gave the Cowboys a D. New Orleans gets an incomplete. And I'll tell you, there's some stuff going on down there that makes no sense at all. The best coach out there is Mike McCarthy. They haven't yet to interview him. It was delayed by snowstorms and weather and all that. He's not there yet. And now we find out that there's a rift. That when McCarthy was there, Mickey Loomis was coming in as a decision maker. He's the general manager and the president. And they don't get along. And all of a sudden, the top candidate has yet to interview and might not interview because of past history with Mickey Loomis. He's the author of Substandard Football. He's the guy that hired Dennis Allen and failed. He's the one who's got salary cap problems from now to the end of his life. Mickey Loomis still has a job, which is kind of weird. So I'm not sure where they're going to go. They spent 4 hours last night with Kellen Moore, the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe he's a guy, but I don't know that he's a candidate to be a head coach beyond me. I mean, if you're asking me who I'd want, I think I'd want proven commodity. What he did in Dallas, 3 straight 12-win seasons, that's pretty damn hard to do. What he did prior to that in Green Bay, you do remember Super Bowls, don't you? I think McCarthy's a better coach, but this Mickey Loomis thing is just kind of hanging out there. So that's the report card, and what's gone on with coaching vacancies. There's only one left out there. John, thoughts?
I'm encouraged about the Raiders. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that I'm saying that. But, they've had this history of bringing on coaches or even GMs that in some cases were sort of unknown guys or longtime coordinators. And then every once in a while bring in a big time famous guy, like Gruden or whatever. But nothing worked. Nothing ever worked. And so do you think that was just the constant, was the Davis family always meddling for the last 22 years?
You think?
We know Jerry Jones meddles in his way, but I don't see Mark Davis as a meddlesome guy.
But if you keep making bad decisions about the personnel you're bringing in, that's the trigger point. So if you're bringing in substandard head coaches and giving them carte blanche and they're not good, then what do you get? You get bad product on the field. And they had general managers along the same way. I'm trying to think of what the statistic is. I want to say this is I'm going to get this wrong, but it's something like the 9th different head coaches and interim coaches that Mark Davis has had since Mark Davis took over. That's not good. No continuity whatsoever.
How long has Mark Davis been in charge now?
Since, I want to say 2011, maybe?
Yeah, sounds about right.
And they've had only 2 winning seasons since 2003. But this is Pete Carroll. I mean, the press conference was really impressive. Hell, I was ready to sign up. And I don't like anything about the silver and black. But I wrote kind of a cool one-man's opinion column that's on my website, and a lot of people responded to that today via email to me. So that's where we are in the coaching carousel. Fascinating to see how quick Pete Carroll flips this, because he flipped USC within a year and a half, and he flipped Seattle within a year and a half. And last I checked, Seahawks went to 2 Super Bowls with that guy as a leader. And John Spytek's got a great track record as a young player personnel guy who drafts and develops people. So, and like I said, the last general manager left in 10 draft picks and $107 million in cap space. And to me, Pete Carroll would be a magnet to draw guys there.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. Hey, by the way, did you see the quick press conferences from Aaron Glenn and then Leon Cohen? Because Aaron Glenn took control of the room. He was like in charge during his press conference. And then Leon Cohen gave this half-ass weak sauce Duval comment. Did you see that?
Yeah. And he kind of got ganged on that one. And, but Cohen is the one that pulled out and then pulled back in. Okay. So, I mean, he was about to sign an extension to stay in Tampa. Then they fired the general manager, and then they called Cohen and said, yeah, I'll talk to you now that Trent Baalke's gone. I'm like, what a strange set of circumstances. But
it's a short drive.
Yeah. The guy does have a track record of X's and O's that is college football, NFL related, college football, back to the NFL again. He's moved around a lot. So all things, you got an opinion on Pete Carroll, Raider Nation. I want you to text, want you to email all your friends. Tell them about what we're doing on this podcast this afternoon. Tell them to jump on board. Tell them to join us, Fans Forum, in the chat box. Your letter grade on what team you want to talk about, especially the Raider Nation. We're not done. We got a lot to talk about. Next topic, we're flipping to baseball.
Okay, now, public enemy number 1? Where are you going with this?
Dodgers. The nationwide response outside of the 213-310 area code is pretty harsh. A lot of condemnation in the Dodgers spending spree. As of breakfast this morning, this is what the Dodgers have committed. Their payroll right now is $318 million. They owe Major League Baseball next October at the end of the season at least $118 million luxury tax payment. They handed out $295 million in signing bonuses to all the guys that they acquired this offseason. And because of creative financing, they have deferred to 12 players $1.03 billion in deferred salary over about a 14-year span. This obviously started with Ohtani, and it's progressed through Teoscar Hernandez and all the other guys that they've acquired. Everybody now has some deferred salary as part of the deal. Tell you what, Dodger baseball's got great history, legacy, tradition. They got great players, some Hall of Famers probably on this roster. They're going to go into everybody else's stadium, and they're going to experience, I don't think they've ever experienced before. They are really going to get booed. I think they are truly public enemy number one because of what they've done. But that being said, John, they haven't done anything illegal. They've just creatively financed all these contracts. But I think you'd agree with me, Mr. Capitalism. That's a staggering amount of money, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just like comparing it to all the contracts in the late 70s and 80s when free agency first opened up. I mean, these numbers are unbelievable. But yeah, they did nothing illegal, right? They're making good decisions, but this is insane, these numbers.
So that's where we are with the Dodgers. We're not done with the Dodgers. Next topic.
Roki Sasaki, a little homework report.
This is kind of cool. I'd never really heard this before. As you know, there were 20 teams that expressed interest with him. They granted 7 different teams to interview him face-to-face. He gave out a homework assignment to each of the group of finalists that he was going to meet with personally. And he wanted specific answers to questions. Question 1, for example, how would you handle me if I lost velocity in my fastball and my cutter? What would you do? Question 2, how do you handle pitchers whose mechanics get out of sync? What do we do to fix that? Item 3, if I had shoulder woes or I needed elbow surgery, which has become commonplace in baseball, how would you structure my rehab to get me back on track? Item 4 obviously had to do with relationships. What's your clubhouse like? How diverse is your clubhouse? How do you handle the unique personalities who come from different countries in your clubhouse? It was an amazingly different set of questions that each team had to respond to. And evidently the Dodgers answered all of them correctly, and he chose them over the Padres and over the Toronto Blue Jays, who were kind of a late entry in there. I was told that Sasaki had a private meeting with Ohtani, a private dinner meeting with Ohtani sometime between Christmas and New Year's. Then when they went back for this follow-up meeting, the Dodgers brought in Mookie Betts, who had a private meeting with him, Freddie Freeman, who had a private meeting with him, Tommy Edman, who had a private meeting with him. He wanted to find from players within what it was like to be a Dodger, from players who came from the outside, Boston, Atlanta, etc. What's it like to become a member of the Dodger family? And then he had videos from Clayton Kershaw in Texas and Yamamoto from Japan, sent him and did Zoom videos with Ohtani. So he really covered an enormous amount of questions, seeking answers on the spectrum. I was pretty impressed when an agent kind of told me some of the stuff that was going on in these private meetings and the dossier that he sent out and what he responded back. I've never heard that from a player or an agent before. What'd you think?
Well, that's probably what you do when you're in a job interview, is going from Cleveland to Phoenix to San Diego. Here's my hacksaw homework right here. Sasaki is in such a unique position. Because he doesn't need to convince the other team. Because he's going to be great and his salary is going to be really low. So he could flip the table and now they all have to like woo him. So, it shows the maturity of Sasaki and his agent. So you gotta be impressed with it.
Intellect, just amazing intellect. That's one Dodger story. We got another one here you won't believe.
Oh my God. When you showed me this before, I couldn't believe it. Look at this.
These are the top 23 pitchers the Dodgers have under contract right now. Now, granted, a few of them should have asterisks next to their name because they're recovering from surgeries. River Ryan had surgery at the end of the season. Brusdar Graterol, the reliever, had surgery in late fall. Won't be ready. M. Sheehan sat out all last season with surgery. They think he will be ready. There will be no Gavin Stone this year because he is recovering from shoulder surgery in the offseason. But just look at the collection of pitchers who've won games wearing Dodger colors in the last calendar year. I mean, I counted, in all honesty, 9 starters that could be part of that rotation. And you got a couple of other guys who are recovering from surgeries. And I counted probably 9 relievers, all of them with all degrees of accomplishments, from what KOPECH did at the end of the season to what TREINEN's become, what Evan Phillips is, what we know about Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates coming back, reinventing himself, and then the mixed bag of guys. And it was interesting, the Dodgers executive this past Saturday at the Dodger Fan Fest said, we don't need a closer. We will use the bullpen based on matchups, right-hander, left-hander versus left-hander, etc. So, I mean, it's 23 guys who have won games for the Dodgers within the last calendar year or so. Pop that list back up there, John. Go ahead and comment.
I mean, that's just absurd. I mean, it's like, I remember back in the 1980s, this is a music thing, but the US Festival is this big Friday, Saturday, Sunday show with a lineup. Well, that's actually what they do out in Coachella as well. This is what it looks like. Friday night, you got GLASNOW, SNELL, and YAMAMOTO. Saturday, KERSHAW, KNACK. Sunday, KOPECH, TREINEN. It's insane. Now, I don't blame the Dodgers for it. They were playing the game. They're operating within the rules. They got good people running the organization, but holy crap. I mean, that's insane.
So that's your Dodger pitching staff. That's your roster going forward. You got an opinion. I want to hear from baseball fans, a.k.a. Dodger fans, also invited to join us. That's a staggering amount of talent that they're bringing to Camelback Ranch in a couple of weeks when they open their Cactus League spring training camp. We're not done with baseball. Next topic.
The Padres. It's like the opposite story from the Dodgers.
This is getting worse rather than getting better as we're getting closer to the opening of their spring training camp in the Cactus League in Peoria. The first topic is the one that just spilled out. They've been shopping and talking about if they have to make a potential trade, and they will have to make a trade to get that payroll down. We've thought extensively that deal might involve either Dylan Cease or Luis Arise. They're taking phone calls on Michael King, which to me makes no sense at all because he's younger, he's more cost effective, even though he's a potential free agent. I would think you would want to keep him. But they're taking calls on King in addition to Cease, in addition to Arise. Somebody's leaving, has to leave. Now, ownership has kind of intimated that the payroll will bump up from 170 where it was last year, maybe as high as 190, but they're already at 208. So somebody's got to vacate. They lose Jurickson Profar. They gave it their best shot. I was told the Padres offered Profar 1 year, $5 million, with a $3 million incentive clause, total of $8 million, with an option for a second year. Scott Boras would never respond to that. He delivered his client to Atlanta for $14 million per season. John, I would never pay Jurickson Profar $14 million a season after just 1 year. He's still a lifetime 246 hitter who had a career year. But I'm not taking him from 1.5 to 14 million. That's crazy. And yet, Atlanta did. And then he drops the hint, well, the front office uncertainty had something to do with my decision. Just be honest. You took the money because the money was unbelievable. So that's the latest on Michael King. That's the latest on Jurickson Profar. That's the latest on the trade rumors. There's going to be a deal. They didn't do what I said. They had a chance to call Trevor Bauer, and they didn't. Trevor Bauer has just re-signed to go back to the Yokohama Bay Stars in Japan. He was 20-2 the last 2 years while being exiled to Mexico and to Japan. They could have gotten him for probably the veterans minimum that might have been $5 million. The guy is 83 and 64 as a starter. Might be a jerk, but since being a jerk, does that exclude you from baseball? They missed an opportunity there. There's not many other pitchers left out there, and most of the starters that are left out there on the free agent market are coming off surgeries and injuries or have 200,000 miles on them. So I don't know how they're going to execute this, but there's obviously going to be some deals. And then we have the ongoing civil war in the front office. Sheila Seidler's lawsuit against the Seidler brothers. She wants to be the point person. They finally responded late last night. Michael Seidler said that Sheila Seidler undermine the whole ROKI Sasaki situation intentionally by making the inane comment that franchise might be relocated. Michael Seidler said that was intentional, said that her attempts to remove the three Seidler brothers has been destructive. And then they revealed in the document that was filed last night by Michael Seidler his response to the lawsuit. They've accused her, this is nothing more than a money grab. They've already transferred $42 million of money from Seidler's trust funds into different real estate investments that Sheila Seidler wanted to make. $42 million since he passed, and she withdrew $2.5 million from his bank accounts while he was in ICU about to pass away. So they painted her in a very, very shadowy, bad light along the way. And where she indicated she should be the point person, Michael Seidler's response in a lawsuit response last night was she's never, ever attended an MLB owners meetings. She was never, ever involved in any decision Peter Seidler made, even though she said she was a counsel to her husband. And she never attended any of the twice-a-year Padre ownership meetings where the cash calls were made to fund everything that Peter wanted to do. She was never at any of those. Michael Seidler says, how is she qualified to be the point person? This is ugly. This is sad. First question that popped into my mind after I read through it early this morning was, do you think Peter Seidler really wanted to have it turn out this way? And we're on the brink, I fear, of reverting back to a really bad time. And the bad time was Tom Werner and the terrible 15 and what they did to Padre baseball, aka fire sales. And I just don't like the way this thing is positioned right now. I don't know her. I've spoken to her maybe once to say hi when I was in company of Peter. I don't know the inner workings of that front office executive suite, but this is not good for baseball. Not considering how good the product became under Peter Seidler and how the community responded to everything that Peter Seidler was. And now we're at the doorstep of what I think is catastrophe in terms of leadership. And we still have an unresolved roster situation with A.J. Preller because of the restrictions on what he can spend, cannot spend going farther. To me, it's just a bad feel as we go towards the start of the Cactus League. So, John, I put a lot of Padre information out there. Give me a response.
I mean, it's so hard to be a fan of sports in San Diego. The curse is real. I mean, this is unbelievable. Going backwards in time to fire sales and the Tom Werner regime, awful. Now, at first with the whole Sheila Seidler thing, when she sort of popped on the radar here, in terms of ownership, at first your heart is with her, because you're thinking of Peter and the love and wanting to make this team, go beyond its financial limits. But the more I'm learning about this, the more it seems that she's not in the right spot here. So I don't think it's going to work out well for her, in my opinion.
It comes off as a money grab.
Well, but it's nothing wrong with a money grab if it's your money. Okay. But it's, she's entitled certainly to a portion of his estate, but it seems like he laid out a plan, like a blueprint on because he could see his passing coming like a year or two in advance. So it's just sad. And as much as the Dodgers are just blowing everything up in LA, and I mean that in a positive way, it's the opposite with the Padres. But I'm happy for Profar. I mean, I love that guy. I mean, and I'm sure he would have loved to stay in San Diego for all the vibes, and, the vibes above replacement, which was the cool stat that Divine Sports Gospel came up with. But there's no way he's worth that money. I mean, to say nothing of the fact that they're trying to shed payroll, but he's not even worth that from a Padre point of view. So let go Atlanta. And then, it seems like the Padres, their strategy is to unload players 1 year before free agency.
They're going to have a tough time signing Michael King because every agent that I kind of canvass, they won't say it publicly, but I think the undercurrent is, I'm not signing an extension. I'm taking my guy to free agency because that's where the money is.
Well, that's a money grab. I mean, everyone's on a money grab. Everyone's trying to get what they think they deserve. Okay. But some people go about it in different ways that you may like or dislike.
Okay. That's where we are. You're a Padre fan. How distraught are you? This is not what Peter Seidler thought he was leaving behind. Who's the right person? Who's the wrong person in the midst of this lawsuit? This is really ugly. And we want to talk about player personnel. Who would you keep? Who would you trade? Because somebody's going to obviously have to exit here to get younger, more affordable, controllable players. Which one do you think is the most marketable that could send away to help you get some of those type players. One last baseball topic on the table. We're going to set all the bad business of baseball aside, and we're going to walk into the shrine at Cooperstown.
In Cooperstown. And look at the top of the list is Ichiro. This is a nice class.
Yeah, it was a really cool class. Ichiro Suzuki. I think the most amazing thing to me is he did this for 19 years with Seattle, the Yankees, and other clubs, after he had done it for another 7 or 8 years in Japan. His statistics are just overwhelming. And obviously, I think we always thought the greatest player of all time, we never got to see here in Major League Baseball, was Sadaharu. And I think right now, Ichiro's across-the-board statistics are so much more impressive than anything that Sadaharu accomplished. But Suzuki, 3,089 hits, 509 stolen bases, 311 career batting average over 19 years, 10-time Gold Glove, 3-time Silver Slugger, 2 batting titles. All this on top of almost 1,300 hits he had in Japan. Just absolutely amazing. CC Sabathia. It begs the question, should Cooperstown be for the greatest of all time, or should it also include the very good of all time? Now, CC Sabathia was a young pitcher who got to the major leagues in Cleveland, went to Montreal, had started with the New York Yankees. He won 251 games. He struck out over 3,000 batters over the course of the game. So he kind of straddles that phraseology, greatness versus really, really good. And the last one was Billy Wags. Billy Wagner, dominant flamethrower. Now, he pitched for 16 years, 9 years, a really dominant closer. You know, when Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman kicked the door down, because relievers had never been allowed in the Hall of Fame. They were a specialist. Those guys, after they got to their 500 save mark, they qualified, Lee Smith, all that. And now you get Billy Wagner, 422 career saves, unbelievable strikeouts. He struck out 35% of the batters that he retired coming into the bullpen. That was really dominant. So those three get in. And then there's the star, whom some think he should be in. Preponderance of people say no. Alex Rodriguez, 699 career home runs, only got 37% of the vote. And of course, the clock is ticking. You're on the ballot for 10 years. If you never get to 75%, you don't get in. Just ask Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens about that. A-Rod, strutting around like he belongs. A-Rod, a fraud, a cheat. 699 home runs, got only 37% of the vote again, just to bump up from where he was a year ago. So go ahead, talk about the Japanese star, talk about the frontline pitcher, talk about the closer.
Ichiro is awesome. I mean, he just was such a great guy. Besides his amazing talent, you know, the cultural impact. I mean, you even see some of these wacky videos on X of him doing these insane things on a baseball diamond that you would never think that a right fielder would do. I mean, and he just handles himself with great class too. I mean, he's just all-star across the board, yet he wasn't voted in unanimously. I mean, what the heck?
No, he got all but one vote.
Yeah, but still, who would not vote for Ichiro? That's like the easiest decision of all. You know, the other two guys, Sabathia and Wagner, they to me are similar, that they mostly played on the East Coast, you know, and they both had very good careers. And for moments, you know, during their career, I really kind of paid attention to them. And then for a while, I forgot about them. And then you'd say, oh yeah, that guy's still playing and he's still kicking butt. And eventually they kind of pile up the numbers like Don Sutton of the Dodgers.
Concur with you. And thoughts on A-Rod, A-Fraud, A-Cheat?
That guy is just, I don't like him as an announcer, you know, or as a commentator guy. They're obviously making a clear line here on the steroid thing, but there's still a lot of guys that have gotten in there. We're certainly on the juice, you know, but he's being targeted and he should be targeted.
Okay. You got an opinion on the Baseball Hall of Fame? Feel free to jump on board. Just a quick storyline flashback. I go to spring training to do my sports talk show over the Padres spring training camp for all the years I was on 690 and 1090. I remember, I don't recall the year, but it was the first or second year Ichiro had come from Japan. So I went over, I think I might have gone to Tempe because I think they were still doing spring training in Tempe, the Mariners, before they built Peoria. And I went over there and I wanted to just watch him in batting practice. I had never seen anybody stand at the plate with his bat ready for the pitch, and as the pitcher's going in, him shuffling in the batter's box, moving his feet and stepping into the box before he ever swung the bat. The
Yeah.
guy was swinging while his lower extremities were in motion, and he was doing it to position where I'm hitting the ball. And we were spoiled because Tony Gwynn would get out of bed and drive one through the 5-5 hole on the first pitch of spring. This guy, based on movement of feet, would drive it that way or drive it this way or pull it down the line or spray it to center. All the while, I'd never seen anybody move in the batter's box like that. You know, we saw guys who would raise their front foot and swing and get lift and all that. This guy was actually moving in different parts of the batter's box before he swung at the pitch. Never seen that.
You know where they do that a lot, or not a lot, but a significant amount is in girls softball. And if you're like a top of the order hitter, you know, where speed is your thing, they have them moving in the box as they hit, like to lay down a bunt. And they're already like 3 strides into their run up to only a 60-foot baseline. So it's common there. But yeah, Ichiro did it in MLB. And I remember seeing that too. And I was remarked by that. The other part of it is, and I think it's part of the same part of the mechanics, his hips seem to open up before the bat comes around to a greater degree than most American players. And if you look at Ohtani, it's similar to the way Ichiro swung.
Yeah. Except Ohtani's got a powerful snap of his wrist. I mean, I watch Ohtani closely, and I thought Roberto Clemente might have had the greatest swing of all in terms of flexibility, wrist with power behind it. And Ohtani is beyond that. But Ichiro's bat control, hand-eye coordination with the bat while he's moving his feet in the box, to me is amazing. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's very difficult, you know, at least when I've seen it, you know, at the local girls softball leagues, it's hard for them to do it. I can't imagine doing it, you know, facing a 100-mile-an-hour ball.
Okay, you got an opinion. Fans Forum chat box is open for Hall of Famers. Don't be lame. Show me your game. Your thoughts on Ichiro. Your thoughts on A-Rod and whether or not he deserves to get in. Hey, we get to halftime. Hope you're enjoying our special Tuesday Talk to Me podcast, brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they've got ideas. John, talk about Dixieline.
Talk about Dixieline. You know, so one of the things that, you know, I've been doing business with them, you know, because I kind of work with them on a number of different projects. I've had a relationship with these people since the mid-1990s. And I'm telling you, their leadership, all good guys, you know, and they've been there for a long time. And the company's gone through a lot of different transitions with different owners. And right now, the owner of Dixieline is a company called Builders First Source, which is the largest lumber yard, the lumber provider in America. And so for a lot of Dixieline's clients, you know, a lot of us know the hardware store, the lumber yard, but they do a lot of work for builders out there. And so when builders want to build like a whole community of homes, they go to Dixieline or they go to their parent company, Builders First Source, who does it nationwide.
So you got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they'd be glad to recommend and help you too. Just remember, Dixieline Lumber. A couple of items here on this podcast. Special Talk to Me Tuesday Hacksaw Headlines podcast. Check my website. I write on it every day, leehacksawhamilton.com. Read my one man's opinion column on the Raiders revival. It's on that website today. Want you to follow me on Twitter. Become one of my Twitter all-stars. Just at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Want you to share, subscribe, tell everybody who we are, what we do, normally Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. And when you subscribe, you'll get the alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. Also, when you go to my website, there's an orange box right there. Join that. Get on the email list, because when you do that, you'll get the special alerts that we're sending out as part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. And again, when we're done with topics on the table, what are we going to do, John?
Fans Forum. Yeah.
Explain it.
Yeah, explain it. So this is your chance to get involved. You got a question or comment in the world of sports, drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum. It's coming up very soon.
And again, we apologize for missing almost a week, but we had fires, we had power failures, I had a medical situation. He got blue flu because he smoked a bad Hawaiian cigar and drank Pabst Blue Ribbon with his dog at the same time. So we were out of commission for a week, but now we are back. All right, let's go to the second half. A couple of other topics on the table, then we'll go into fans forum, John.
Okay, let's go NBA. You got Lakers, Clippers, and the Suns on your list.
Lakers. NBA trading deadline is about a week away. Lakers stars have gone public. Make a trade. Anthony Davis, who, by the way, last night had 43 points and 23 rebounds against Charlotte. Anthony Davis said, we need another big. He just popped that right out. Now, if he looks down the bench, what kind of reaction is he going to get from Jared Vanderbilt or from Hickson, the backup centers, when he's saying we need another big? Then LeBron James pops off and says, we have resources. Trade those resources. Get us another player. Well, he's looking down the bench there, and what do his teammates think about him saying they should get rid of these guys? Lakers, they're in fourth place. Like, that's a freaking accomplishment for a legacy franchise like this, because they go only as far as the health of AD and King James, but these two guys have now popped off. Clippers, tell you what, nobody's talking about this. You know, they've lost guys. They've had to deal with the Kawhi Leonard injury after injury, and the fact he missed a chunk of this season. He's missed so many games prior to that. James Harden's got 100,000 miles on his body. Don't have much of a bench. Tyronn Lue's got them to 26 wins already. They're right there almost in fourth place in the division. Very impressive. And we got the Phoenix Suns with new owner Matt Ishbia. These guys never learn. He wants to put together another all-star team. He wants to have 3 superstars. You know, he's got Kevin Durant. He's got Devin Booker. He made the trade for Brad Beal. How'd that work out? Now he's trying to make a trade to get in on the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes. Butler got himself suspended again yesterday, third time in a month. He's lost like $4.2 million in salaries now by suspensions. Miami's trying to get him off the roster in a trade. But Phoenix makes a trade and they get 3 number 1 draft picks in a deal from Utah because they want to package all this to get Jimmy Butler. So now you get a Butler, Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Has any of that worked out? Has Phoenix got a championship ring, lately? No. Just nobody seems to learn that sometimes this roster building doesn't work if you go out there. So that's the latest around the NBA. So you're a Laker teammate. You're the first guy off the bench. Maybe you're the third guard, 7th player in the rotation. What do you think when AD looks down the bench and says, make a trade to get a big, or LeBron says, trade these guys?
Yeah, it's not a team. It's like this assemblage of pieces and parts that include star players, young guys that fit under the salary cap. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So that's where we are. Trade deadline is coming. We'll wait and see what happens with the Jimmy Butler thing, because I think he's going to be the first one going to be out the door.
Speaking of basketball, did you see the move that Kawhi Leonard did where he went behind the back in the reverse layup?
Yep.
It is so cool to see him playing at a high level. We sure missed him. He's been gone for so long.
And he's on a minutes limit. Now, he did play 28 minutes last night. That's the most he's played all year, but they've been slowly increasing him. He's not playing a heck of a lot in crunch time and in the fourth quarter. And even though he wants to be out there, they're just trying to managing these minutes. So I kind of hold my breath to wait and wonder, because he's had some games where he's not been on the box score or on the floor. I thought, is his knee flared again? But so far, so good. But they are controlling his minutes.
Yeah, and speaking of Kawhi, Aztecs tonight too. So, hey, all good. A lot of hoops going on.
Okay, a lot of basketball to talk about. Feel free, jump on board. Lakers players, right or wrong for popping off. Fans forum chat box is open. Speaking of trades, NHL.
Yeah, here we go. Avalanche and Canucks.
Yeah, let's talk about the blockbuster Colorado deal. This has not gone down very well. Colorado made a massive 3-team trade that involved Carolina and the Chicago Blackhawks. And Carolina winds up getting 25 goal scorer Mikko Rantanen. He's got 25 goals already. He's on track for a 50-goal season. And he asked for in excess of $14 million in Colorado. He's about to be a free agent. He wanted more than Nathan McKinnon's getting. And the Avalanche said no. And it just became a real friction point, and they just gave up. And they traded him in a package deal. Now, they got some pretty good young players. They got Martin Necas. They got a 2nd and 4th round draft pick Colorado did. That changes the chemistry of an Avalanche team, and it really helps Carolina, because Carolina also got veteran Taylor Hall. He came from the Blackhawks as part of that deal, and he's got 275 career goals. Some of this is cap-driven. It's a blockbuster deal, but I think it really impacts the Colorado Avalanche chemistry. The other trade is we're waiting to see. The toxicity of what's gone on in Vancouver is just really hard to believe. Their two highest paid players are just not teammates. JT Miller is earning $8 million. Elias Pettersson is averaging $11 million. Neither one is scoring to the degree they've scored in the past. Vancouver, which was the shiny object during the playoffs last spring, just fallen on really hard times. They're not winning games at home, and they're not playing very well together, and they're trying to make a trade. They're trying to move somebody. They thought they had JT Miller going to the New York Rangers, thought maybe they had a deal Miller go to Carolina. He's the veteran guy, got suspended by the coach Rick Tocchet about a month ago for an explosion on the bench. Those two players just for some reason don't coexist very well, and the team is just staggering out there, and they got high cap numbers. So keep an eye on that. Somebody's leaving Vancouver. It's just real toxic chemistry situation. Isn't it, the chemistry in rooms in the NHL, and to a degree, I think in the NBA, is so fragile. Slightest things set these guys off.
Well, it's ego, and prima donna and all that. They've kind of factors into it. And there's so much money on the line, and so much exposure. But you were talking about blockbuster trades in the NHL. You have a long history in hockey. What are some of the biggest trades you remember? I mean, I remember, of course, Gretzky from the Oilers to the Kings, but were there other super big ones?
Yeah, well, the first one that I ever came across, and I was really young, I couldn't believe it. Boston Bruins traded Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr, greatest defenseman of all time, greatest offensive defenseman of all time. And he was the first one that went out the door, and he wound up in Chicago, but he was at the tail end of his career because of chronic knee problems. So that was a shocker. And then Phil Esposito got traded. Boston and the New York Rangers and Chicago are always doing these deals. And north of the border, Frank Mahovlich, who was a legend with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it was a trade with Toronto and Montreal, and they hated each other. So, yeah, there have always been deals. The Gretzky deal was beyond belief that this could ever happen. But that's because the owner, Nelson Scalabrini, had terrible money problems, was a terrible business owner, and Bruce McNall, who, by the way, wound up going to prison, the owner of the LA Kings, made the mega deal to get Gretzky to come to Los Angeles. And then we know the history of how good the Kings gotten, and the Kings, went to the Stanley Cup and won it. So those historically are the biggest trades of all time. But the Bobby Orr trade to me was, I was young. I said, how is that possible? That's like if you traded Willie Mays or you traded Mickey Mantle. Mm-hmm. You traded Bobby Orr? You kidding me?
It's like trading your mother, That's nuts.
Well, in some cases, that's not bad. Okay, that's all things hockey. Hockey Hotline is open for the O Canada Network. If you've got an opinion, I'd love to hear what the O Canada gang has to say about the toxicity of what's going on in Vancouver. And if you got a response on this Colorado Avalanche trade, feel free to jump on board. Last set of topics on the table. We're going to try to buzz through this quickly.
High-speed sports wire and Dodgers.
Ohtani's former aide, Ipi Muzahara, going to court February 6th, will be sentenced. He's written a 2-page letter to Shohei, to the Dodgers, and to the judge, throwing himself on the mercy of the court. He doesn't want to go to prison. He's going to prison for maybe 14 years for the theft of $17 million. Prosecuting attorney presented evidence this past week that Mizahara impersonated Ohtani 24 times in conversations with banks to transfer/steal money from Ohtani accounts. Transferred $200,000 at a time, impersonating Ohtani. He made an unbelievable number of bets while impersonating Ohtani. 19,100 bets in a 2-year span.
Oh, my God.
$40 million in debt. He stole $17 million in all. And then in the letter, he blames Ohtani for underpaying him as his personal aide and valet.
Oh, God.
And the lawyers have said, this is such garbage, it's ridiculous. This guy was addicted. This guy's been betting since he was 18 in Japan. They have now asked, he could get as much as 14 years because the IRS is also involved in this. They've asked for 57 months, revocation of his visa, and send him back to Japan. So we'll see where that goes. New York Mets, Steve Cohen, the owner, he goes public as Peter Alonso, free agency has dragged on and on and on, and there have been different offers made. And because the Mets are dealing with who, Scott Boras.
Scott Boras, yeah.
There's always a response from Boras. Well, Steve Cohen went public at FanFest and said, I can't do business this way with this person, making reference to Boras, not so much Alonso. The Mets have offered him a 3-year, $70 million extension with an opt-out after the second year. Boras has come back. He wants 3 years, $93 million, with an opt-out after the first and second year. Steve Cohen says no. He says, if I sign him to this contract, it pushes us into the stratosphere in terms of luxury tax, and I got to pay all this luxury tax, and I get him for 1 year and he could leave. He said, I'm going to do business this way. And Steve Cohen says, at the end of the conversation, the interview at the Mets Fan Fest, I run the New York Mets. The agent does not run the New York Mets. So I don't know where Alonso's going, but you got Alonso still out there, you got Bregman still out there, and those are both Scott Boras clients. So this Mets thing has gotten uglier rather than has gotten better. And the Angels are back in the bidding, and so is Toronto. And what makes no sense to me, why would you give Alonso a 3-year deal with opt-outs after the first and second year? Because if you sign Alonso from the Mets, you got to give up 2 draft picks as compensation to sign him, because he was given a qualifying offer, rejected it, which meant his draft pick compensation attached to his baseball card. Why would the Angels do that? If you want to get him for 3 years locked in, fine. But you can't do opt-outs if the dude's going to leave after the first season in Anaheim and you're forfeited not only money, but you forfeited 2 draft picks? No, that makes no sense to me at all. College athletics. This story has not gotten a lot of recognition yet, but it's out there. The Big Ten and the SEC have made a proposal to the NCAA. Hold on to the table. They have told, because the college football playoffs have been such a great success, the Big Ten and the SEC, which is the head of the Power Four conferences, have indicated, we want to take over operation of March Madness, College World Series, and your media contracts. We want to operate all that under our umbrella of the Power Four conferences. And the NCAA says no. And all the other conferences around the country say no. We can't give total power to the Big Ten and the SEC to run all this, because then they're going to change the distribution of money, the March Madness units and everything. And we need all that to fund and operate our 17 or 21 intercollegiate programs at each of the universities. But there's a power play going on from the Power Four. They want to take over the whole thing from the NCAA. So, wow. Yeah, this story bears watching. UCLA. How much money you got in your checking account? This is staggering. UCLA has just transferred $30 million into their athletic department to try to bail them out of an unbelievable debt. UCLA is in huge financial trouble. They lost $51 million this past year in this transition to go to the Big Ten. $51 million. Now, they've added coaches and they got all the expenses of everything that's happened with this transfer to the Big Ten. In the last 6 years, UCLA has an athletic debt of $219 million. I mean, it's staggering.
Yeah.
Now, their theory is, well, now that we're joining the Big Ten, we're going to get a big piece of that TV pie, like $61 million per year. And that'll wipe this out. But how do you get $219 million in debt? The problem is bad product. Attendance has drastically dropped at the Rose Bowl. We talked about the fact they're drawing 3,800 at Pauley Pavilion, where Bill Walton and Alcindor used to star. They've lost a chunk of their TV money because of the death of the Pac-12 network and how underachieving that was. What a financial disaster UCLA is. Next topic, former owner of the Washington Redskins, Commanders, Daniel Snyder, in a private interview in London, where he has since located, said he can't root for the Washington Commanders and the things they've accomplished because they accomplished it without him being the owner. I mean, there's a real sad sack interview of him being angry at everybody in the nation's capital for what the DC Commanders have become under new owner Josh Harris, what Dan Quinn has done. This man's intent was always to rake in the most amount of money and put it in his pocket. This man was guilty of this toxic workplace environment that got him fined $60 million. This man was the recipient of Paul Tagliabue's public comment. Dan Snyder is the worst owner in the history of the National Football League. Quote, do you know how far back that goes? And here's Daniel Snyder doing this interview, and ESPN got access to it. Just talking so much bitterness about what he created, what he left behind, and how it got him tossed out of the National Football League. And the last one is the Australian Open tennis tournament, just completed. We saw some things in terms of sportsmanship that I'd not seen recently. Novak Djokovic had to pull out of the semifinal with a leg injury. Fans booed him when he was coming off the court at the end of the first set. He could not go on. And they booed him. We found out later that day he went into that tournament playing with a torn hamstring, and he got booed. Well, the guy that beat him went public and said, don't boo this man. This man has meant so much to this tournament. This man has meant so much to pro tennis at age 37. He's won all those Grand Slam events. Now, Djokovic, in all honesty, was also involved in a terrible issue with the Australian government over his refusal to have a COVID test and get exiled from the tournament a year ago. Nonetheless, a player stood at center court as he had the mic in his hand as he was being interviewed for winning, and he lectured the fans and said, don't boo this man. This is a special man. And then we had the situation in the final round. Jannik Sinner wins his second straight Grand Slam event. He's a great player. This might be the next superstar. He ran off Russian Alexander Zverev. Straight sets, beat him, just ran him all over the court and put him away. As they were coming to shake hands, the fans in Australia were screaming in the stands, go back to Russia. Go back to Russia. Your soldiers. As if he's to blame for what's happened, Russia versus Ukraine. Jannik Sinner stopped the interview, and he lectured the fans about how this is not fair to this individual. He has nothing to do with what Putin has done in Ukraine, and he chastised his own fans. And then there was the temper tantrum in the women's final. Aryna Sabalenka got knocked out by Madison Keys. She really dominated, and Sabalenka just came unraveled and just smashing her racket on the court and the net and breaking a racket, throwing rackets. Just totally lost her composure. Madison Keys buried her, broke her serve 3 times in the beginning of the match, and there were 4 double faults. Sabalenka, I'd never seen her play so poorly. So weird week of import, or I should say deportment in the stands from the fans at the Aussie Open. So, John, there's a lot of topics there. Gordon, you can talk about Mizuhara, Steve Cohen, college football, Daniel Snyder, or the Aussies.
There is a lot on that list right there.
A lot of junk.
Yeah. I mean, okay, first of all, UCLA losing a ton of money. We've been hearing about this for years. Yeah. But you know who's making up the difference? The students are probably paying extra tuition. Because I know a lot of students, when you pay your tuition, there's an extra line item for intercollegiate athletics, or taxpayers are kicking in to cover that. So, yeah, they got to get their house in order, and hopefully it all sorts out for them. But this takeover of March Madness and the College Baseball World Series, the Big Ten and the SEC, or the Power Four, is it? The one, I mean, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense at all. And think about what that would be like for mid-major schools, like, San Diego State, Cal Poly,
who need that money.
Well, yeah, and they'd be, screwed. They'd be left on the outside looking in.
So I don't think this is going to pass. I don't think the NCAA's got so many problems right now. They get sued every time they make a decision, and they lose in court nonstop. So it's going to be interesting to see in the next calendar year how this whole thing changes, because I got to believe that it's going to change. What's the favorite beer in Australia? What are those people drinking down there? Treating Djokovic the way they treated him? Jeez.
Yeah, it's nice to see, though, the players standing up, for the other players and what they're going through. I like to hear that. But remember, tennis used to be a polite, almost like a golf crowd, with a polite clap. And now
Nastasi and John McEnroe kind of changed that.
They did a little bit, yeah. And then I remember, the U.S. Open's a little different, but yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, all that's crazy.
Okay, those are hot topics on the table. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. We're back here doing sports talk the way it should be done, and now it's your opportunity to jump on board. You got questions, we got answers. You got a statement to make, we'll never hear it unless you jump into the chat box right now. We're going to try to run through as many as we can here, plus what we have on social media. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. Got projects for 2025. Just go to their website, see all the things they offer you, Dixieline.com. John Riley has promised no more cigars and no more Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's your turn, your segment. Take it over.
Here we go. 4RXLA says, Pete Carroll was cast off by the NFL and nobody else wouldn't hire him. Raiders are in such disarray, nobody wants to coach them. I think this is a good fit for both sides.
It's interesting because Pete at the press briefing yesterday made the comment that being away from it for a year allowed him to recharge his batteries because it just, that job just wears you out. But it also allowed him to step back and look at perspective of what he wanted, what's the most important aspect of coaching. He's such a positive guy, and John and I talked about it. You know, Pete is 73, going on 53 in terms of intelligence with the energy of somebody who's 33. I've been around a lot of coaches, some really good ones and some real jackasses. This is one of the most unique, positive people. I've never seen anybody with the kind of energy that he has every day of the year. It's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he's a special guy. I agree. You know, it's funny, like the Raiders are in such disarray. You know, nobody wants to coach them. They got a hell of a coach in Pete Carroll, so I'd say someone does. But the team that doesn't seem like anyone wanted to coach them were the Cowboys. And maybe is that how they ended up with Schottenheimer?
But he never interviewed, Jerry Jones never interviewed very many people. You know, I would think, or the Dallas Cowboys were the star. We'll make a phone call. You'll be in here and you'll interview because we're the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't do that. They hardly interviewed anybody. I mean, Jerry Jones just totally took over the press conference. It wasn't about Brian Schottenheimer. He talked about his dad for about 30 seconds. You know, Marty should be in the Hall of Fame. He talked about what he learned from other coaches, what he experienced with Pete Carroll up in Seattle. So, but the press conference was about Jerry. Jerry's ideology, Jerry's philosophy, Jerry's wishes, Jerry's wants, Jerry's needs, Jerry's assertions about the roster. It was about Jerry Jones. It wasn't about Brian Schottenheimer's weird.
It's Jerry's world, baby.
That's right. Aren't you lucky you're in it?
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Okay, let's go here to Matthew. I want to say thank you very much for the $4.99 donation. Matthew says, both Sheil and Brothers shouldn't run the Padres. I never bought the narrative that she'd magically have money to spend. From where? Aren't the Pods paying loans?
Well, Padres ownership made cash calls to bump up what was being done by Peter Seidler and A.J. Preller. I mean, I think there was some hidden griping about the extent of the. No, it wasn't hidden griping. It's one of the reasons I think Ron Fowler stepped aside. Ron was the point person. He just did not like the methodology of the contracts that were given out, the contracts they were eating, the continued transactions that they were making, the signing bonuses they were extending. He just stepped away from operation of the Padres. But it was Peter's team, and it's Peter's money or Seidler Equity Investments money, etc. She's not qualified. Period, exclamation point, end of discussion. She signed a document that she would not be the point person if Peter passed on. Now, she may not like Matthew, Bob, John, or Tom Seidler, the 4 remaining brothers, and maybe there's some validity there. But what Matt Seidler posted last night in the response to the lawsuit about the fact they've transferred all this money from the estate, from the trust already to Sheil Seidler, and she wants more and more. She wanted $20 million a year annual salary. She's not qualified to be the point person. It's really messy. I don't know how they get through this. I don't think this lawsuit is ever going to court because baseball has a bylaw that ownership disputes wind up, quote, in arbitration. It's probably going to wind up in arbitration, whether there'll be a settlement or not. But it's not good. It's not a good look for the Padres. And it's diffused enthusiasm, I think, about where the Padres are as a franchise right now because they've not been able to conduct any business. A.J. Preller just signed another relief pitcher today, another minor leaguer. He signed 16 minor league street free agents. Not one of them has done anything at the major league level ever. And those are the offseason acquisitions. And the only 2 veteran players they got were an outfielder that's been released by 5 teams who hit 103 last year, and a catcher, Martin Maldonado, who hit 119 last year and kept getting released. That's it. That's your offseason of acquisitions from the guy that used to be the hot lava general manager.
Hot lava general manager. You know, this just smells like a gold digger thing to me. And I hate to say that because she always seemed like a nice person and she was Pete Seidler's confidant. But now I'm going to say something that I'm telling you, I don't know this for sure. I can't remember if I read it or misread it. So please correct me if you know the info. But apparently Shields Seidler commented that Peter intended for Shield and Shields' daughter to run the team. And I'm assuming that's Shields' daughter from another relationship, not necessarily Peter's daughter. And if that's true, I can't imagine Peter Seidler wanting to leave control of the team, not along bloodlines.
The fact there's all kinds of signed documents that she would not become the point person makes any other comment carry no validity. Now, she may think something, and she may say that Peter wanted eventually the older daughter to run the franchise to keep it in the family, but we don't know what was said behind closed doors and was never included in any of the documents that have been presented in the course of the lawsuit. So I think this thing winds up in arbitration, and to me, it's sad, though, because I thought, that, as I told you, John, this morning, is this really what Peter Seidler wanted it to end this way? I mean, no. he must not be real happy where he is right now, viewing what has befallen the franchise he invested so much emotionally and financially into. It's just not a good situation. And now there's a report out there that within 2 weeks, MLB is going to approve John Seidler to become the point person, despite the lawsuit and what's going on, because John Seidler was appointed to be the point person by the trust, and the trust has control of the franchise, and the three brothers run the trust.
Yeah, it's just like a heavy dose of reality. You know, we're like going back to small market Padres, low markets team. We just lived in a fantasy when Peter Seidler was pulling money out of his pocket to fund this thing, and now our expectations are raised, unrealistically high. It's just what a freaking disaster this whole thing's turning into.
Well, AJ's still got room to create something. I defended him on TV on KUSI again. Does he have magic left? Yeah, he's got Dylan Cease as trade bait, or he's got Luis Ariz, or now, unfortunately, maybe they're taking offers on Michael King. So maybe he'll make a trade that'll fill some roster spots and give him some salary cap relief. But in the bigger picture, the ownership structure up top does not look good right now. Okay, let's move on.
Moving on. Okay, let's go here to Callan. Afternoon, gents. Glad you're both safe and healthy. Sometimes life means more than sports. Saw, who would you vote for the Hart Trophy this season? Feel like McDavid is a shoo-in this season.
Well, he's having a phenomenal statistical season. Of course, he just came off the suspension. I just don't know where the competition's going to come from because he's running away with the points lead. And I just got to believe that, unless he gets hurt, McDavid is probably the guy that you're going to have to pay an awful lot of attention to, and rightfully so. I just happen to think he's just a great player. Are they a complete team? No. I'll tell you what, the NHL playoffs are going to be wild, because you got Edmonton's really good, and Winnipeg, nobody's paying any attention to what the Winnipeg Jets are doing. And, I mean, they are so strong in their division. And the LA Kings are really scary, because they got a lot of guys who are snipers who can score goals. Trade deadline might influence. That trade deadline's coming up in a month. There may be some deals that are going to change some things on the Eastern Seaboard. But, yeah, I think Edmonton is really, really good, and Winnipeg is just a slap shot behind them and being a complete team. And Winnipeg's got the goaltender, and I'm a huge Hellebuck fan. So we'll just see where it goes. Playoffs will be good, but there are going to be some changes at trade deadline. Some involve trades with contracts, and somebody's going to rent a vet that's going to help them in the playoff push down the road.
We're going to get to some of the Winnipeg guys on this thing because they're already getting crap for the Maple Leaf sweatshirt. So, okay, let's move on. We'll go here to Gordon. Hey, Lee and John, watching and listening from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Thanks for the great sports updates.
Well, thank you. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We do try to cover an awful lot. Yeah, we throw a lot of stuff on the wall. But the philosophy, and John and I have talked about this when I did Sports Talk Radio, which I thought was pretty damn good. I just decided I was going to cover everything on the waterfront. Not everybody's an MLB fan. Not everybody is an NFL fan. There's NBA fans. There's hockey fans. There's auto racing fans. There's PGA fans. There's hockey fans. So if you touch hot stories You keep everybody interested and everybody comes back to you. And that's what we'll try to do with this podcast, rather than sit here and talk about the same story every Monday and every Thursday, because I don't think that's real good.
Yeah. Like that would be trouble. But it's just, I'll tell you this, just personally for me, this is just so fun to do this with you because I used to listen to you for years on the radio, on drive time, 690, 1090. And I just felt like I had a relationship with you in my own kind of weird way. And now suddenly we're doing this together. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a reincarnation.
To quote the great Peter Seidler, the first time I met him when he became the owner of the Padres, and I did not know him, he knew me. First thing out of his mouth, I've listened to your sports talk show forever. I couldn't wait to get on the 405 and made sure I was in traffic by 4 o'clock so I could listen to this best 15 minutes in sports talk radio with Hacksaw's headlines. That was I love getting on. I had to get on the 405 at 4 o'clock. So I'd be in gridlock and I'd be stopped and I'd be able to hear everything you're saying.
No, literally when you did that, that was a groundbreaking kind of thing.
Yep.
I mean, no one was doing that on the radio, at least here locally in San Diego. No one.
That's right. What, do you want me to apologize for being bleeding brilliant?
It was just, it's amazing. You're just like a fire hose of sports content.
Next one. Thank you for the compliment.
Another one from Cal. And he goes, also, John, how can you wear a Cal Poly hat when you're a UCSD alum?
That's a good question. But John's had a bad week.
No, but this is where my daughter went to school. So, I pulled the hat out of the closet. Okay, let's go here to comment. He goes, WST raid, and I see a Laughs hoodie. Oh, the shame, Hacksaw. Let Hustler send you a Jets or WST hoodie. I've
got Winnipeg Jets gear. We start the playoffs. I promise I will wear my Winnipeg Jets gear that I traded for Hustler. So yeah, I owe you one on that, and we will get it done. You have to understand. I'm involved in a mixed marriage. I'm involved with a Montreal Canadiens fan. Do you know how hard it is in my house? Maple Leaf fan, Canadiens fan. It's really hard. Now, here's standard joke. This might offend some people, but tough crap. How many Montreal Canadian fans does it take to change a light bulb?
Tell me.
The one person who's on the ladder that unscrews it and puts a new bulb in, and the other 10 people standing around the ladder talking about how the old great bulb was so great for so many years. That's Montreal Canadian fans talking about the Bleu Blanc Rouge way back in the day, and Firewagon Hockey and Jean Beliveau and Guy Lafleur and all those people. So just understand how hard it is in my house, because you got a Maple Leaf fan, Montreal Canadian fan.
Mixed marriage. That's great. Okay, let's go here to Bruce. He goes, Duval. He's
talking about the situation with Liam Cohen.
Yeah.
Give us the background give us 30 seconds about the Jaguars coach who interviewed the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, who interviewed in Jacksonville, pulled his name out, was about to sign an extension to stay. Jacksonville fired the general manager, called him back and said, would you come back and talk to us? He said, I'll take the job, after they got rid of Trent Baalke. So go ahead and talk about what he said at the press conference.
Well, yeah, it was like he rolled in and he had this weak ass Duval, Duval. And he kind of had this weird, it's like a classic photo or video clip. It's going to be a meme, online. And it was weak. And
he mispronounced it intentionally.
No, he just said it soft, And so that was, you got a head coach coming in, man, a leader of men. And you want to hit the floor running, and it just kind of came off weak.
So he didn't rank right up there with Pete Carroll's sales pitch.
No, not at all. But and by the way, 2-3 years ago, we were all singing the praises of Doug Peterson. It's amazing that it didn't really work out for him. And do you think that Trevor Lawrence is a legit NFL quarterback?
He got so beat up last year, it's hard to say. But, prior to that, he had driven them to the playoffs. But they were a wreck. They had so many guys hurt. They had no defense at all. And then they lost one of their wide receivers, and one of the running backs got hurt. And then Lawrence had 2 different injuries and finally had surgery. And he was trying to play through the injury. So you get a bright guy like Cohen coming in with X's and O's. That's his middle name on his resume. And this will be fun to see how quickly they can get him up and running. And they're going to get everybody who was hurt on defense back. Guarantee you they won't give up 390 yards per game next season because all the injured defensive guys are coming off IR. So I think they'll bounce back.
Remember Mark Brunell?
Yeah,
he was a Jaguars quarterback. Didn't they get to the Super Bowl, or they got close?
Yeah, with Tom Coughlin.
Yeah,
he was the first quarterback. He was a really good player. He wasn't a superstar, but he made plays with his arm, with his legs. He's an assistant coach with the New York Jets, or was. He actually interviewed about going into Jacksonville maybe to be an assistant, but it hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened yet. Okay, let's keep going. And the Dodger fans are also piling in. I'm going to kind of put 3 of them up on a row so you can hit them. One is from Javi. He goes, Dodgers broke the Padres' time to go back to their true selves. And then Gary says Dodger payroll is actually $375 million. And then Javier says Hacksaw's a low-key Dodger fan.
A little bit of truth because I'm a Dave Roberts fan, and I like all the teams. Do you think they get offended if I wore the Dodger hoodie again? Is that piling on in San Diego or piling on in San Diego?
It was mostly Dodger fans freaking out when they saw you wearing that.
They broke the Padres' heart in the playoffs. This sounds cruel to say. It's tough to hit major league pitching. It really is. And it's tough to hit major league pitching when both your hands are around your throat and you go 24 straight innings without scoring a run. And the Padres that tried to soft sell this, I'm sorry. They freaked out. They choked. They won 24 straight innings in the playoffs without scoring a run at the most important time of the year. Totally out of character. So this is not the Padre players. Dodgers dominated. Dodgers hit the jackpot. Dodgers to spend all their money, so be it. And by the way, in terms of the reference to the salary, if you take payroll and then you have to add the benefits, that's why the total's 375, because that involves everything that is used in the compilation of the luxury tax. But their base payroll is 318, and that may go up a little bit further with the signing of Kirby Yates. There's another acquisition coming, but it's going to push them close. I would think close to $390 million, which will be the luxury tax figure they have to pay.
See, I'll admit it gets confusing.
Sure.
Because you got the actual salaries.
Then you got the deferred that comes out of that number.
Right. And then you have the part that's front end loaded by the bonus.
And then you got the insurance coverage, which then goes into the formula for the actual total tax figure. I mean,
but then also, if you have a backloaded contract, that might be good from a cash flow perspective, but it recalculates the AAV, right?
Yeah, average salary.
So every time we talk about the salary cap and the luxury tax, I always wonder which one of those we're talking about.
Well, the higher figure is actually the total cap figure that they're going to be charged for. The lower figure is the base payroll of what they're paying out.
Yeah. And so the benefits like medical, dental, 401k. I don't know if they provide all that.
Yeah, they do. That goes into, that's why that number 318 payroll right now is actually 375 for salary cap purposes.
Okay.
New math, not for me.
I mean, by the way, those boards that you put together about the Dodgers, all the numbers and that pitching staff is unfriggin' believable. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. By the way, did you get that in your newspaper? Yeah. Did you get that on your talk radio? Yeah. You got it on this podcast.
Yeah. Here, I just want to put it back up on the board here. I mean, the one we're talking about is this one. First of all, talking about Dodgers as public enemy number 1, which I think was a funny headline. But there you got all the dollar figures. And yeah, the guys online are saying that the payroll should be around 375. But then it was the second one that was just mind blowing is this Dodgers pitching list. I mean,
every one of those guys has had success at the major league level, and they're all going to the Dodgers camp in 2 weeks. There's 23 pitchers there.
It's absurd. I mean, and I'm not bagging on the Dodgers. I mean, they made the right decisions. They got all these guys. Good for them. But that is just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how it's possible that they could pull all this off, and there isn't as much competitive pressure from other teams.
Yeah. Number two market in the country.
Yeah, but I think they have that special, like their TV deal gives them revenues that other teams don't get. Sure. They got all the Japanese, corporate sponsors coming in. So they're playing chess, and we're playing checkers here with the Padres.
That concurs. Next one.
Okay, next one. Here we go, rolling down the list, and this is from Hector. He goes, Lee, the Dodgers will not be booed out of any road stadium. Dodger fans take over everywhere the team goes, even when the Padres try to bar them from buying tickets.
Oh my goodness, Dodger fan is just feeling it right now.
Feeling it.
Absolutely amazing. they are going to be public enemy number one. They're going to get booed. They're going to booed like the Yankees used to get booed, Evil Empire and all that razzmatazz. So it was interesting at the Sasaki press conference, Andrew Friedman said, what we're doing is good for us and what we're doing is good for baseball. And the reporter said, what do you mean it's good for baseball? He said, we're drawing 4 million. We'll lead the world in attendance. That's who we are. And when we come into your stadium to play, we're going to sell out your stadium and you're going to make a lot of money off of the fact you're facing us. There's a little bit of semblance of truth in that because there will be Dodger fans coming to San Diego, but also they're going to get booed. It's going to be a bit of a culture shift because they'll be public enemy number one. Now they're going to go 162-0. No, I don't think so. But I think they're going to be public enemy number one.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are going to want to boo them because of everything they've done. But I just remember growing up as a Giants fan in the 1970s, and that was a rough go, and the Dodgers were loaded. They had that famous infield with Ron Say and Steve Garvey and Bill Russell and Davey Lopes and Lasorda. I mean, they had a great run back then, and it was like, the clean-cut Dodgers and their pretty beautiful white uniforms playing in the sunshine in Chavez Ravine, while I was miserable at Candlestick Park, freezing my butt off in July with hot dog wrappers flying everywhere, all the debris, and nobody in the stadium. And I was like, Dodgers, blah, 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 right? Okay, then I come down to San Diego to go to college, and now I get part of the Padres, little brother syndrome fight with the Dodgers. And now the Padres, I think, have grown up and they just get smacked right back down again. And here we go. We're living in Dodger world.
Well, they did have their 15 minutes of fame, didn't they? And then they won 24 straight innings and didn't score.
That is still just mind boggling.
Sure it is.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I mean, I sat at a bar near my cottage in the Adirondacks and it was cold as hell outside because it was almost November. I sat in a biker's bar every night, and I watched the Padre-Dodger playoff series. And I was surrounded by drunk Yankee and Mets fans and biker bar guys and all that.
Yeah, you fit right in.
Yeah, thank you. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. This team, had grown together and won all those games and gave us a summer full of excitement and so much expectation and so much, what a letdown. And now it's been followed by what I think has just been a terrible letdown this winter. So we'll see where it goes. Dodger fan, feel good about your team. You want to pile on? Go ahead, pile on. We'll see what baseball season brings.
Okay, let's jump over here to Emmanuel. He says, hey, I'm glad you guys are back. Who will the Pac-12 get for its 8th football member?
They're not making any progress. They just don't have any idea. I was told that they have reopened talks with St. Mary's about coming in as another basketball school, which makes a lot of sense. But the NCAA just seems to be steadfast that you got to have 8 football playing members. And who are they going to take? Twain? Nah. UNLV? I guess that sounds sexy to a degree, but that doesn't move the needle. Does any of that really help you in your media rights package? Memphis is already committed to stay where they are in the AAC. I just don't know who else out there. If I were the Pac-12, I'd go to the NCAA and say, we got 7 football. We've added Gonzaga. We're going to add St. Mary's. Give us a waiver and let's do it. And then we'll see a year from now. Give us a 1-year extension or a 2-year extension because there probably will be some fallout and will be some more changes along the way. Sorry, I don't include Northern Illinois leaving the Mid-American Conference and going to the Mountain West. That's not what I'm referencing, but there will be some other fallout. I wish the hell they had a chance to get BYU, because BYU coming here would cap it off and make it a pretty complete conference. But I'm sorry, with apologies, I talked to you about this. With apologies, I can't be excited. Pac-12 looks no different than Mountain West 2.0 to me. It looks like the old WAC. No.
Yeah, it does. And by the way, Aztec Mike tells me all the time that Sacramento State is the team that might be coming to the FBS, with the bowl series. So, is Sacramento State Mountain West material? Are they Pac-12 material? I don't know, but in the end, it doesn't matter because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to run everything.
The only saving grace would be if somebody wakes up at Cal and Stanford and said this was stupid to go to the Atlantic Coast Conference. And if they come back, they'd be admitted immediately. Then they would change the scope of West Coast football. And maybe that would give them 2 more schools to satisfy the NCAA requirement. That might be the only wild card out there. because Stanford and Cal are not getting anywhere near the full media share by having gone to Atlantic Coast Conference. So why the hell would you do that? Just come back. Play in a new look Pac-12 with Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Stanford, the group that came from the Mountain West. But I'm sorry, if it doesn't have Oregon or Washington or SC or UCLA attached, it's not the same to me.
It's not the same, but everything's changing.
Yeah.
The whole monopoly board is shifting around right now, and it's tilting further in the direction of some teams and not others.
That's where we are. Emmanuel, stay tuned because we'll just keep on trying to give you the information, but keep an eye on the St. Mary's. That might be the first domino that falls next.
Okay, let's go here to the O-Siders. NFC and AFC Championships games going forward on 4th down instead of field goals and going for 2-point conversions. Why are coaches going against the history of the NFL and not getting guaranteed points? Shaking my head.
Because the offenses are so dynamic in the NFL right now that, yeah, you can get 3s, but you're going to give up 7s because the other guy's got firepower to go down and score. And that's been the DNA of those head coaches all season long. So why would they change it? I'm kind of tired of the tush-push thing that sometimes did not work for Buffalo, always seems to work in Philadelphia. But, why would you keep running that specific play with Josh Allen? I mean, and John and I have talked about these coaches study so much video. And you probably heard it alluded to that Kansas City and Spagnuolo moved their defensive front because all the video they studied showed Josh Allen always went tush-push quarterback sneak off the left side of the center. So they moved Chris Jones down, and he's as big as the state of Rhode Island. And that's why they stopped him on 4th down multiple times. And so these coaches will find a way to defend you out of the good things that you do. But the DNA of these guys, go for it on 4th down because I got offense, can get it, and we'll keep the drive going. I'd rather have 7 than I would 3 because the other guy's going to score 7. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's exciting, because I remember when I was a little kid, I was like, how come they never really go for it on 4th down? They only do it when it's desperation time. But I remember there was like a high school coach somewhere that he went for it on 4th down every time.
Somebody in college, it might have been St. John's in Minnesota, St. Thomas in Minnesota.
Something like that.
Yeah. They haven't kicked the football.
Yeah, they wouldn't punt. And they would never kick field goals either. They would always go for the touchdown, always go for 4th down, and they ended up winning a ton. So they thought that from a game theory perspective that it's actually better to do that. But the NFL is so damn conservative and so much
not anymore.
Well, because they follow the next guy, right? It's a copycat thing, and for the longest time, it was Mr. Conservative, 3 yards on a cloud of dust.
This wave of young coaches, they do think outside the box a lot. All right, thanks for the comment, Oceanside. Go ahead, John.
Okay, we're talking about some of the big contracts with the Dodgers. Dave Johnson says, hey, let me take you back to 1990. Jose Canseco signed a record $23 million 5-year contract. That was absolutely crazy at the time.
I remember crazy at the time. Do you remember when Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale with the early LA Dodgers held out a camp and wanted $100,000 each from Walter O'Malley? And Walter O'Malley said it would bankrupt the club. The Dodgers in Los Angeles, drawing $4 million. And those probably would bankrupt the club to have to pay Koufax and Drysdale. Catfish Hunter, I think his first contract might have been $200,000 after Charlie Finley violated his contract. He became, and the arbitrator made him a free agent, and he wound up going to the Yankees. His first contract was $200,000. They said, "Holy cow, $200,000 for a pitcher!" Now, and everybody's making $40 million a year. Everybody except talk show hosts.
Yeah, maybe even Pete Alonso might get that. So, I like the fact that players are making bank because they deserve it. They're the best of the best. They're the elite, and there's so much money, so much fan interest, so much media coverage, or all these guys, that they deserve a fair portion of this. So I'm happy for them.
Does that include all the crapola with the NBA players?
Well, okay, that's a whole other can of worms right there. The NBA is just weird. It's amazing how, the average NBA guy seems to make more than in any other sport, right?
Yeah, the fringe guy's making $20 million a year sitting at the end of the bench, never getting the chance to play.
That's insane. I mean, I'm surprised by that.
You got Jimmy Butler running down the hallway. I can't find no joy in Miami. He's making $49 million a year with a $52 million option, but he can't find any joy, and he keeps getting suspended.
Yeah, no joy. So it's some Marie Kondo stuff going on. Okay, let's keep on rolling here. There's a bunch of other guys that want to get in on this, and I got some guys down here. Okay, Surf City Bill's getting cocky. He's a Dodger fan. 158-4.
Just feel free to pile on. That's okay. Hey, has anybody told you how many pitchers the Dodgers have? Hacksaw did. I mean, is that the most amazing thing you've ever seen? How many established pitchers they have who've won games are going to Camelback Ranch? So 158-4. Feel free. Everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Yeah, they'll probably lose the 4 to the Miami Marlins or something crazy, Okay, let's go here to Joe. And he says, hey, I heard UNLV was back on the table for Pac-12 membership.
It's a conversation point. It just continues to go on. At this point in time, what do they bring to the table, though? I mean, they've had 2 flashy years in football. Now they lost their coach. Basketball, I mean, Tark the Shark and NCAA championships. My God, that was a bunch of turnovers ago. There's not quite the same program, but maybe because it's the Vegas market and all these franchises are going to Vegas and they're going to move the playoffs to Vegas and the championship game to Vegas, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's got something to do with it, that it's going to become a neon light place to go have a team in. I just don't know that Vegas, much like anybody else, brings very much to the table in terms of whatever the Pac-12 should look like. The thing that I just said off the top of my head that I think carries more clout is let's let this thing go another year. Petition the NCAA, give us a waiver, let us start with 7. Because if Cal and Stanford wake up and say, this is crazy for us to be in the ACC, because they got their ass kicked this year in the ACC, and they're not getting the full share financially, just bring them back home. So now
you contracts, right? I mean, they're stuck for a while.
You can always negotiate stuff out. The fact they're not getting a full share.
Yeah, but they're going to probably have to pay money to exit. And so then is the Pac-12 going to have to go into its vault? And, the money that they, that they ended up getting from Cal and Stanford to have to be used to bail them out of the ACC.
Anything's possible. Yeah. I would sit and just wait and see what happens with Cal Stanford. I don't think SC's coming back. I don't think UCLA's coming back, despite the financial trauma that the Bruins have right now. But I think Cal Stanford would have some legitimacy. But, if the Cardinal and the Golden Bear, the Beavers and the Cougars of Washington State, that's going to be your 4 anchors. Is that really a great conference? And granted, Boise's great. San Diego State basketball is great. But that's not the Pac-12 that we all grew up and respected and loved.
Yeah, but for a while, the Pac-12 was like the little brother of the Big 5 or the Power 5. So, the glory days of the Pac-12 to me are like the 60s and the 70s. Right. Not so much maybe a little bit of the Pete Carroll era, but
Pete Carroll era and what they did in Oregon. I think that's unbelievably impressive. What Don James did at Washington, what DeBoer did just before he vacated Washington. I mean, there were some really great programs, a lot of really good players, but I just don't like the makeup. I'm sorry. I hate to be dumping all over San Diego State prospects, but this looks like Mountain West 2 or the old WAC to me. There's nothing sexy about what they're going. Just because you put the Pac-12 logo up on top doesn't mean it's great.
Well, I mean, what are they going to do? It's not like you can invent, a new university or move, North Carolina over into Nevada or something. It is what it is. So, all these other conferences, like I remember, what was it? The Big 12 when they one of those new Florida schools? Was it UCF or USF? I mean, where did those universities come from? They weren't even on my radar.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they popped up, and all these conferences are shifting with new names, but we don't have as many universities on the west side of the Mississippi.
Concur. Well, Texas, sure we do. We got all the Texas schools are big time, and Oklahoma has been big time.
Right.
Oklahoma State's had good years, but the conference realignment is so geographically screwed up.
Well, geographically doesn't mean anything anymore.
Exactly.
Except for the players that got to go on the airplane flights all the time.
Fill the slot. West Virginia in the Big 12. That makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it? Central Florida in the Big 12.
I mean,
crazy.
I think they maybe just need to reimagine the whole thing in a way that doesn't just make it lopsided. It's all SEC Big 10. Is there a way we can reimagine this and still have mid-majors to be relevant in the conversation, and mid-majors have at least a shot to prove they're legit?
That's another topic for another day. Otherwise, we'll be here till Saturday doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Let's do a couple more before we get to social media. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, Joe is rolling in there. Let's see. Oh, here's a comment here from Live Resin. Hey, big up the team sports news approvals. Everything you guys do. So much love from San Diego. Knowing this confidence is soaring through the air. Big up team sports.
You are right. We are bleeping brilliant. Thank you. It's all John's fault. John's the one that invented this podcast. I just do the content and the graphics, and he's the one that delivers it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's switch over to some social media. And
do we have to?
We'll just get a couple in here, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. Okay, yeah, here. Okay, more Dodger stuff, and this is from Jonathan. It's a little bit long, but Dodgers rock. I get that LA is big, and we get a lot of TV revenue, but our organization is doing everything right. We're hiring good players who also kind and work well as a team. We're making smart business decisions. We're making smart management decisions, and we have incredibly passionate fans who will show up to the games and buy merch. We outsold Taylor Swift in tickets purchased in 2024. We have team history. We have great branding. We have a great social media team and a great fan culture.
I agree with virtually all that. You also had Frank McCourt. So let's not be running up and down the hallway, the thing saying everything was great for Dodger baseball forever and ever and ever. Yeah, it wasn't. We had great owners. I mean, Ray Kroc and what Joan Kroc did, they were very special people in our community. What Peter Seidler's legacy is, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Now, granted, we've had bad owners too, and we've had bad situations, and it's kind of a bad situation right now that doesn't look good. It's the optic of this is not good, and they got a baseball problem here now with the roster and the contracts A.J. Preller has given out. Dodger Stadium, it's a different set of rules just because of the revenue streams and the greatness and the region and the number 2 market in the country, etc. But you also had Frank McCourt. Keep that in mind too.
Yeah, that was a while ago, though, right? You know, but Mookie Betts is a class dude.
Sure.
So is Freddie Freeman.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we can go down the list. Like, just every guy on there is a good character guy. You know, and then it kind of makes you wonder, that had to be part of their strategy in picking these guys. I mean, because they wanted that kind of those sort of glue guys that are friendly and appealing and kind of motivate the rest of the club.
Yeah, that was one of the tenets when they made the Adrian Gonzalez trade. Who he was as a person, what he represented both sides of the border, was one of the reasons they made that mega Boston Red Sox transaction.
That was huge.
But they have the resources to execute that type of thing. So I would, part of me would say this thing is cyclical. You will go through stretches where your organization's really good, really successful, right people lead in, and you go through bad stretches where bad player contracts or bad injuries or mistakes on people. I think that happens everywhere in sports, but right now, arrow is really pointed up with the Dodgers and 158-4. I guess that's what they're shooting for.
Now, the ownership group for the Dodgers, I hear people talk about Guggenheim.
Yes.
And is that the primary ownership?
Yeah, they're lead investors. They're the I don't know, $66 billion in investments and things like that. Just phenomenal. But they got great baseball people. Andrew Friedman's a great baseball person. Stan Kasten, who is the head of the hierarchy of the baseball side, that man's got great baseball credentials dating all the way back to Atlanta. And obviously Friedman was very successful. Think about this. Andrew Friedman came from Tampa where they had no money, and he succeeded in terms of player development. He goes to Dodger Stadium. He's got more money than God. It's absolutely amazing where he was, what he had experienced, and what he's become.
Yeah, unbelievable. Is Magic Johnson still an owner too?
Well, he's minority owner. He talks a lot about this and that and my team. Please, he's just that's name recognition for his investment. That's all.
Okay, well, they can have Mario Lopez, by the way. He was like one of their Uber fans. Okay, let's kind of go down here. Let's talk about Chargers, and this is from Kev Rock, and he says, to be fair, it's kind of a salute to that season. I know it's hard for others from big market cities to understand, but the season really was a magical time for the city of San Diego. When they flew home from Pittsburgh that night, they arrived, I wanted to say 9 to 10 at night. Over 70,000 fans went to the stadium to greet him. So many that they decided to open the stadium for impromptu pep rally at one of the wildest scenes ever.
Rained like hell, and it was so much fun. And again, this is for those who aren't aware, this is the 30th anniversary of the Chargers winning the biggest game in the franchise history, going to Pittsburgh and beating the Steelers and Bill Cowher, and then earning the trip to go to the Super Bowl, and obviously playing in the Super Bowl and getting blown out by the record-setting Steve Young performance for the San Francisco 49ers. But it's an accomplishment that sadly has been forgotten in our community, which really kind of stuns me. And maybe that's just a fallout and an afterthought because of what Spanos did to 55 years of loyalty, and people have never forgotten him. I don't see Charger gear anywhere. And I have Charger gear that I saved. I've worn it a couple times. I wore it once here. I kind of got hammered, which is okay. I don't care. It's my gear. I'm going to wear what I want to wear. And I continue to support Justin Herbert. But I think there's such ill will directed at the first family of football, the Spanos family, for what the hell they did to our community. That's why there's nobody that wears Charger gear at all. And it's sad commentary that we've forgotten how great that year was. And that, for the older citizens, that's a memory you never, ever forget. I'll never forget it. I mean, it goes right up there with all the other unique things I did over the course of my broadcast career. But that's right there at the top.
You know who always reminds us of the San Diego Chargers? Is the damn Dodger fans, just rubbing it in. You guys can't even keep an NFL team. You can't keep an NBA team. You're about to lose your Major League Baseball team.
Wait a minute, though. You had the Rams, did you not? The Raiders were there, right? They left.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you chirping about?
Yeah, USC sort of left, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on here. We'll go to another comment about the Padres here. And this is from Tim Blakeney. Oh, it's a good friend of mine here, Tim. He says, 100% correct, Lee. You are the only local sports media guy who is specifically pointing this out. It's not about ownership being cheap. The whole situation is a result of Preller's short-sighted, now untradeable mega contracts for players past their prime, declining performance, injuries, etc., who the Padres are on the hook for the next 5 to 10 seasons. Bogarts, Darvish, Musgrove, Cronenworth, and even Manny. I'll hold off on passing judgment on the Tatis contract for now. Plus, Preller drained the farm system's depth for 1 to 2 year rentals.
It's a big problem. It's the methodology that he was allowed to operate with by Peter Seidler. And I firmly believe in my heart that Peter thought he would have cancer relapse. And then he developed the immune system problem, which actually led to his sudden death. But I think that's why Peter pushed all his chips to the table. He loved baseball. He's part of the O'Malley family. He married in to the O'Malley family. Then he loved the Padres, loved our community. He did a lot of stuff in our community that people have paid no attention to. I've told the story to John. I've been downtown at 2:00 in the afternoon at that area, and I go into CVS to get something. And here's Peter Seidler shopping in CVS like he's just some guy. It's not Peter Seidler, the richest man in the world who owns the Padres, just some guy. And I ran into him outside of CVS. He said, come on up to my office. Let's have a cup of coffee and talk. So this is just a great, great gentleman. And what he did on behalf of the homeless, what he did on behalf of abused wives and kids, just a phenomenal individual. And we've been blessed, in San Diego, we have met some very, very unique people. I would say he and Tony Gwynn are possibly two of the greatest individuals I've ever met, which kind of makes it sad what we see going on now at the upper echelons of that executive suite. And geez, please don't tell me it's a money grab or a power grab, because I'm sure somewhere at this hour, Peter looking down doesn't like what he's seeing, and he didn't plan it this way.
Well, it's exactly what it is. It's a money grab, power grab. It's a struggle. This happens a lot of times with the states, and it's sad. And we're all going through it. And meanwhile, our big brother is ruling the world up in LA. But you go back to those contracts. Okay. Obviously, the Bogarts one looks really bad. The Cronenworth one seemed like he sort of handed it out to Cronenworth because Cronenworth's a good guy.
And he had 2 good years, but now he's dipped.
Okay. The Machado deal, when we first got him in 2018 or 19, that deal made a lot of sense. He got the extension that was at that 5-year opt-out, so it kind of made sense to do that. The Tatis deal, I think, looks like a good deal now. The Darvish deal, I think, was worth it, but maybe were we living in a fantasy of all this free money that was flowing into the system, and maybe that Darvish deal was too generous.
No, it goes to age 42.
Yeah.
And we're talking about somebody that's broken down a couple times.
Exactly.
And then they gave Musgrove the great contract. And Joe is such a physical force pitcher, it all caught up to him. And they're on a hook for a whole pile of money, and you quite never know how a guy's coming back from elbow surgery.
But when Musgrove got the deal, when Darvish got the deal, at the time of the deal, I thought, okay, that deal makes sense, okay, financially, for them and in their career. It's not completely crazy.
The only thing I had exception to was the length of
the length. Yeah, the length was long, but Musgrove's deal is only a 5-year deal. What was Darvish's? I don't know. Was it a 3 or 4 year extension?
No, Jake was 7 though.
Jake was 7. That was a lot, but it just seemed like those deals at the time they were made sense. But maybe the Padres were just, spending money they didn't have. And now here again, we had these unrealistic expectations. And now we're all, like little kids and lost their best friend.
Well, we lost our friend, Peter Seidler.
Yeah.
We really did. And unfortunately, to me, because of the contract extensions, the length of contracts, and coupled with the fact Preller's traded the farm system away 3 times now, this window to be a World Series team is right here. And we just went through the first year in which they choked away the chance to get to the World Series. So the question is, can they get to the World Series this coming season? But then you got the struggles at top, you got the struggles with the payroll, and their inability to move any of the contracts. How the hell are they going to put quality players on the field that are comparable to what the Dodgers have, what the Yankees have? I just don't know. I just don't see it.
Call Steve Ballmer. He's got some extra money laying around in between the cushions of the couch.
Yeah, you think so? So, hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast. We're glad to be back. We went through a lot of stuff over this calendar week with the fires and the power failures and my medical situation and him smoking Havana stogies and drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon with his dog. We're back. We're here Mondays. We're here normally Thursdays at 1 p.m. Hope you'll tell your friends. Check out my website. It's all written. Read my one man's opinion column today about the Raider revival. Whether you like them, whether you hate them, I think there's a lot of facts there I think you'll get a kick out of. We'll be back in here on Thursday, and we'll start to lay the groundwork for what the World Series will be. World Series. But the Super Bowl will, I'm talking too much baseball, what the Super Bowl plans will be. And we got, as I say, the world continues to turn. There's always a lot of stories. And because we do sports talk the way it should be done, we're going to talk about everything, all the topics on the table. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. John, take a deep breath. No PBR, no bad stogies. We'll see you Thursday at 1 p.m.
Thursday at 1. We've got the Aztecs tonight. We need to talk more college basketball.
We'll get to that because March Madness is just around the corner. I see it on the horizon. And thanks for being with us. Always great to have you part of our team on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.